بما علمتنا وعلمنا ينفعنا وزد علما الكريم يا رب العالمين. على نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا واسعا وشفاء لكل داء آمين يا رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. All of you, may Allah bless all of you for being here. We're continuing on our journey through the life of Salahuddin Al-Ayyubi. Hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, planning to finish before for the month of Ramadan. As we get closer, I'm kind of doubting that, but hopefully we'll get through it. Just as a review, what we went over from last week, we went over Salahuddin's character, just give a little insight about him, about his salah, his care for the people, how he really even cared even for the Crusaders that were captured. He would help their women, help their children. A lot about, subhanAllah, the way that he was grounded in spirituality, especially as a leader. You can't just be political. You have to have some type of spiritual backing, or else your heart will get super hard, and it's not good for dealing with people. And so, alhamdulillah, he kept himself very well grounded in terms of spirituality and his mannerism and his character in general. We talked about how he expanded to Yemen and Ethiopia. We talked about a Shia uprising in Yemen, where he went there, where he sent an army there, his brother, and they were able to conquer that and make that area under his rule. We talked about the death of Nuruddin Zenki, which caused a lot of issues because his son was only 11 years old, Ismail. And so the emirs that were around him, they're the ones who kind of like the governors, if you want to use, of the city, that took power over him and started making decisions. And Salahuddin didn't really like it. They thought they're making him doing more of a power grab. And they're putting other emirs in jail and imprison them so they could take over areas. And Salahuddin got very concerned about that. So we talk about who will lead the Zenkin Empire after that. Nuruddin's son Ismail, we talk about him. Salahuddin writing letters to the emirs, telling them to follow Ismail's command, right? Support him and stay under the same vision of Nuruddin. Don't deviate, don't break up the Ummah, don't break up the Muslims into Syria and Egypt, or else the Crusaders will be partying and they'll love those type of things and we'll go steps backwards. Salahuddin taking over Damascus. We talked about how after many tries, they finally just gave the keys and say, come in. They try to push him out. It was inevitable that he was going to take over the city. And so now we have Egypt and Damascus connected, but not Aleppo, which is the main concern, the main power, if you will, of Syria. Even up to today, Aleppo is the main concern of Syria, even though the capital is in Damascus. And so he couldn't get Aleppo. And so that's kind of and that's where Ismail, the son of Nuruddin, was at. So he didn't want to go in there and, fight them and end up being killing going on, Muslims versus Muslims. And so that's where we left off from last week. This week, we'll go over some more assassination attempts. We talked about that last week, about the Hashashin, the assassins that would come and try to, surprise him and attack him. Attempts to finally get Aleppo, and he finally does. The death of Ismail, Nuruddin's son, Salahuddin in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq area, if you will, and attempts to finally take over the city of Mosul, which is in Iraq, and that would be the last areas that he needs to control to kind of make his whole power overspread, so now he could focus on the Crusaders. So let's talk about in 1174. So where we are on the timeline, 1187 is when Salahuddin takes over Jerusalem. So we're about 13 years out from that. Okay, so he's working with the emirs of Aleppo. Right, there is a main emir named Gumushtigan. I'm probably not pronouncing it right. It's a Turkish name. My Turkish is as good as my Chinese. So, and so he was looking over Nuruddin's son Ismail, but he was really calling a lot of shots. He was imprisoning people in different areas. Salahuddin did not like that at all, and so he ordered the arrest of the emir of other cities, the city called Hama, and tortured him, put him in a dungeon. And the thing is that emir was buddy-buddy with Salahuddin. So you kind of see what's going on there, okay? Also, the Shia leaders that were taking advantage of young Ismail, 11-year-old, not know how to call shots very well. And they started taking advantage where Gumushtigan allowed them to bring back the Shia Adhan into Aleppo. Remember, we were talking about this extra wordings that said, Hayal Khayr wal Amal, that they will put the Hayal Salah, Hayal Falah, they put khair wal amal, come to goodness and action. And they would put Ali's name in there in the adhan also. And so they started doing that and adding that back into the city. And he's like, oh, well, go ahead. You know, he influenced pretty easily, right? So Salahuddin didn't like those signs at all. He worked very hard to get the Shia influence out from Egypt and parts of Syria. Doesn't want that to be a thing in his back once again. Salahuddin sends an envoy to go and talk to Gumishtigan. Gumishtigan closes the doors and say, we're not talking to you guys. It's okay, right? Of course, that doesn't show really good ties and working together. So he started also doing things where he started going out from the outside sources to work against Salahuddin. So he starts talking to the assassins, right? The Ismaili Shia group on the Crusaders to fight against Salahuddin. Anytime you see Muslims going to non-Muslims to help against Muslims, you know that's just shows a sign of weakness and, of course, a sign of treachery, right? We saw this in Bashar al-Assad in Syria. He was working with the Russians to fight his own people, right? Because his army wasn't strong enough, so he has to go out. Same thing here. He knows he cannot take Salahuddin, so he has to ask the Crusaders, hey, can you come through and help us out? Ismaili Shia leaders sent a group of assassins who wore normal clothes, went into the army of Salahuddin, came into his tent, right? And then tried to kill him, but their soldiers were able to push him down on that. Now, imagine being a leader at that time. You don't know who the people are around you. I don't know how you function like that. Go ahead. Who has weak armies? Government, no, not necessarily. It's just that everyone was really scared of Salahuddin's army. I mean, he was well known. So Gumishtigan knows that he's not able to, sorry? To not overthrow the government. That's another thing. Maybe that's true. Yeah. But back in those days, these guys were also the leaders of the army, which is a lot. Salahuddin will go out with his army, not like he's sitting in a palace with like silk robes and, tea being brought to him. The army goes out. Next thing you know, they come back and try to. Today that happens, right?
What's the role of the Ottomans?
Sheikh, sorry to interrupt. We're not seeing your slides.
Well, Ottomans came way later, so we're in the wrong time zone now. Timeline. So this is 1174. I think the Ottomans come in. I think it's 16 or something like that. If not, I'm not sure.
I think they
or 18.
Hadn't they conquered already, or the Sultan Osman actually began I believe in the 1150s or something like that.
No, this is way that's way later.
I think we're talking about like the Mehmet the Great.
Yeah, that comes later, much later after this.
But the actual, Osman himself I think he came a little late in this time frame. I think.
Okay, maybe Allah Allah. I did not. Yeah, from what I understand, the Ottomans come much later. Right now, it's the Ayyubids, and then after that, you have the Mamluks that take over, and then you have a couple other dynasties before the Ottomans come up. And show.
In that regard, Gumishtigan was Turkish, right?
Yeah.
So maybe some kind of predecessor of the Osman.
Oh, maybe you could kind of say that. Yeah.
That's why maybe I was wondering, because he seems to have some animosity to Salahuddin. One of the reasons could be that Salahuddin is Turkish.
Well, he's Kurdish.
And
Yeah.
until now, I mean, Turkish, Kurdish is not really based.
Oh, that's true.
So it's kind of a.
Yeah, maybe that's where it stems from. Yeah. I mean, everyone's trying to grab power too. That's another issue. And
1299. Sorry,
way much later. There you go.
That's the problem with nationalism. I mean, that's until now, right? I mean, you see it today more than ever.
Yeah.
Muslims not being united.
Exactly.
Nationalism.
Yeah. I mean, Muslims.
I don't want to Egypt. I don't want to Palestine.
I don't. Yeah.
Shahid, we're not seeing your slides if you're sharing.
Oh, let me see. Am I not sharing?
Yeah, the screen sharing's not.
Sorry for those online. Yeah. It's good. So that's why it's good to go over this history. You kind of see it, like they make that statement. History repeats itself. People don't see that just for fun, right? Whether that's marriage or that's nations fighting each other, right? People having the same problems from who got married 2,000 years ago. Some dynamics change, but back in those days, the dynamics change, right? They were fighting with soldiers on the ground. Now their airplanes are fighting, etc. But the same one in position, one in power, one in your family in charge. Right, not other one people, they're different ethnicity, even though they're Muslims. It's something the Prophet would battle back when Islam was, at the beginning stages, right? The Quraysh and it's Arabs, right? But even the Arabs have tribes. Forget about talking about, okay, he's Persian, Bilal is from Ethiopia, right? That's blasphemy to even think that these guys will have power. So when Bilal goes and stands up and gives the adhan, you see the hadith that people started saying, what is going on? How would the Prophet even do something like that? And then he had to correct them that he's much more pious than all of you, right? So that continues to go on. But obviously, insan, power leaders are all want their power, and that's the thing. I mean, we all say here, like, no, we would never do that. If we were in power, subhanAllah, would be so much more peace. We'll get together. But once you get in that state, things change. Salahuddin, we talked about, and he was a great leader, definitely. But we think like, when he saw all these Muslims were fighting each other, he wanted to bring unity. But you see, all this right here is about him versus other Muslim leaders.
Well, it's one of the seven groups that is guaranteed paradise, right? To be a just leader.
Yeah.
Well, it's so unlikely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But then sometimes you have to do that. You have to clean up your backyard. You have to fight other, that's went on in Syria right now, right? It's going on in other places. Sometimes the other Muslims on there might not want you. So Prophet did that with the Munafiqun. He didn't really fight them though, but they were against him. They're Muslim, they're fighting in his army, but they're trying to stab him in the back the whole time. It's just, subhanAllah, it's a hard thing to deal with, right? But you go see how he works with this. This is going to be you'll see it greatly presented today and how he deals with that. So yeah, we're talking about the assassination attempt to try to kill him. He was able to, get away from that and not be affected. Then we talked about how Gumishtirin started calling on to Raymond III, the Count of Tripoli, right? The leader of Tripoli. They call him the Count. He's one of that's a title they gave them. You guys know Count Dracula, but it's not, that's you hear that term, like, what is Count Dracula? But that's where that term comes from. So he there working with the leaders of, of Tripoli, not Tripoli, Libya, but Tripoli, Lebanon. There was no Lebanon at that time, but working for their counties to come and fight against Salahuddin. Imagine that, and that was, if you took this class and you've been attending, that's quite normal. We've been seeing this, you would expect something like this, Raymond III sent a letter to Salahuddin, tells him, hey, make a deal with Gumishtirin. He's a good guy, work together. And if you don't, I'm building up my power and I will come and get you. Salahuddin laughs that off. You know what he does? He goes and starts raiding outskirts of Antioch, another area around him. He says, let me see your power. Goes and starts raiding these areas there. And what happened is that Raymond III leaves before Salahuddin arrives. So like he's doing these things and then Salahuddin comes and tries to attack him. He run away. The Crusaders know Salahuddin is not a joke. So they're even scared to really face him on the battlefield, right? Right now he has his base in Damascus. It's really in Egypt, but right now he's settling down in Damascus. That's where he's, headquartering all the different armies, if you will. Salahuddin then after that Salahuddin had the Aleppo, Mosul, Ismailis, the assassins, right? And the Crusaders all against him, right? And he's in Damascus, but he has at least 4 sides that are trying to attack him, right? Saifuddin al-Ghazi, a second, he is the nephew of Nuruddin Zanki. Okay, so he's from that family. He is the leader of Mosul. Mosul's in Iraq. Let me give you a map, because these places, if you're not really familiar with it, this is not the best map in the world, at least to see. But Mosul's like way over here. Okay, Salahuddin's in Damascus, where I myself can't really figure it out, but it's around over here. Okay, so we're talking about the eastern part. So this is where Mosul, this is the whole Iraq area. Baghdad's down here, I believe. And so Saifuddin's leading this area. Aleppo's over here, and so he starts talking to him because Saifuddin sees what's going on. Now let me go back to this, make sure we're all good. Where am I at? Yeah, okay. So Saifuddin Ghazi II, the nephew of Nuruddin, he's a leader in Mosul. He sends an army with his brother Mas'ud to Aleppo because he's concerned if the Salahuddin gets Aleppo, guess what he's going to look at? He's going to look out at Mosul. He's going to look at either united with them, and if they don't, then taking them out. right? Because he's seen the Zankids are not all like buddy with him anymore for obvious reasons, right? He's seeing that getting more power and some fishy things are happening ever since Nuruddin passed away and he's 11-year-old is ruling the land. Things are getting all, out of whack. So he sends an army with his brother to Aleppo, who joined to want to make a siege against a city called Hama. And that is where Salahuddin has one of his towns at. So now they're trying to attack one of the towns of Salahuddin. Salahuddin had a great interest, agrees to negotiate. We don't want to fight and kill more Muslims. I understand you guys don't like me. I don't like you. Things are going kind of bad. Let's make a truce. And you see Salahuddin does a lot. I want you guys to pick up on this. He's not about fighting other Muslims. He tries to avoid that. And you're going to see this. He makes 3 attempts to take Aleppo. He makes 3 attempts to take Mosul. He gets them all in the 3rd attempt. So Sunnah to do 3, right? So he does all those things, right? He's not really trying to kill more Muslims, right? Negotiations, that's what he's really about. If these were Crusaders, he would have, it would have been a different story, right? So you can see that he's really trying not to touch them and not trying to avoid any type of bloodshed. Hama is in Syria. That's why I said I should have got a better map. I usually have better maps, but this one doesn't work either way. I'll have to. And it's so small. I wanted to give you an overall picture of what Salahuddin was ruling. That's why I picked this one. But Hama is somewhere. It's over here around this area here.
It's very close to Homs.
Yeah, it's in modern-day Syria. Yeah. So all those areas in Syria. That's where Salahuddin was pretty much. He had all of Syria except the northern part, which was Aleppo. And so Hama is one of the cities. If you were following anything that was going on with Syria maybe a couple months ago, all these towns will sound super familiar because that group HTS were coming down and they're taking Aleppo, Hama, Homs, and they finally got into Damascus. So these cities actually got a little more publicity recently, if you will. Okay, so they make negotiation attempts. Salahuddin agrees to give back Homs and Hama. He's like, I know I took it, but okay, here you guys go. Now, that's pretty big to give back a whole city. You have to be a pretty nice guy to do that. If you take a land, you don't leave from that land. No one really does that. Okay. He got to keep Damascus, agreed to be the deputy of Ismail, the son of Nuruddin. I'll follow his command. I'm trying to be good with everybody here. Okay. Salahuddin aims to protect against division and any type of killing. He really didn't want to do that. The Zangids, with his agreement, got power. Like, oh, look at the Zangids. Are able to negotiate with Salahuddin, get back land. Look, Salahuddin is not as powerful. Make them look like they have a lot more power, which they really didn't have really at that time. Okay. Salahuddin replies that that there was a city called Rahba. This is actually the fortress in Rahba. It looks like a little small sandcastle on the beach. But if you were a person, you would be like this tall down here. Okay, this was a massive hill. If you look at these fortresses back in the day, subhanAllah, should probably do this is one of the ones in Aleppo. Right, these are the cars. Imagine if you try to, you'll almost never get to attack that city. You know what I mean? You get arrows shot at you, hot oil pour on you. You won't get into this area there. So this was one of the fortresses that's still standing in the city of Rahba. Like I said, if you were a person, you'll be very like that dot down here. Okay. They wanted the city back again. So they said, we'll make agreements with you, Salahuddin, but we want the Rahba back. Salahuddin replies back that it's under the control of Muhammad ibn Shirku. You may remember Shirku, right? The all-star, subhanAllah, amazing. He wasn't about land. He was really about just, defeating other people's armies. And that's what Allah made him for, mashallah, right? He has a son. You think his son would be, who is his son? He would be a wrecking ball if you think. So he said, you know what? He's owning this place called Rahba. Salahuddin says, I cannot give it back to you. Go talk to him. This is Shirku's son. Nobody wants to talk to him because probably bad things probably happen to you if you do so. So what they said, you know what? We will attack again the borders of Hama again. Or I think I put the wrong name here. And so they brought their armies. The Zankids said, if you're not going to give us that land back, we're going to take it. Salahuddin doesn't want to fight them, but if they're going to come and fight, what is he supposed to do? So he fights them and what? He defeats them, right? He pursues them all the way back up to Aleppo. But then he just lays siege to it. Like I said, he sets his army around the city, right? This is this is one of the fortresses there. Just says out here, he's not trying to put catapults and break down the walls. He just sets up his camp and say, I'm not leaving until you guys give up this city. Of course, they're not going to do that. Once again, agreements are made. So this is his first attempt against for Aleppo. Okay, there's a truce that made. Salahuddin says, got to keep the lands under his control. Anything under his control right now, that's yours. The Zionids got to keep what there was in possessions, and Salahuddin left Aleppo again. Right? If he wants to, he could take it. Right? This is Salahuddin. Right? He just defeated them, but he's not about that. SubhanAllah. He doesn't want to fight against Muslims. So he just leaves and says, okay, you guys don't control, because Nur-ad-Din's son is still there. Okay. Now, what had happened is that after he leaves Aleppo, he comes to the conclusion that I'm trying to work with Ismail. He's so brainwashed with the emirs around him. I made so many attempts. What am I doing in my life? Pretty much, So he says, you know what? I'm just going to cut my ties with trying to honor him, that he's Nur-ad-Din's son. And I'm going to establish that I'm the Sultan of these areas of Syria and Egypt. That's a hard decision to make. Like I said, if you were in his position, how do you play it? What kind of cards do you play? It's a hard time, right? So he said, and that's why he becomes Salahuddin. He calls Sultan Salahuddin now, right? And the khutbahs are now made in his name in Syria, no more in the name of Ismail, right? The son of Nur-ad-Din. The khutbahs are now made in the name of Salahuddin as the leader of this area. Okay. The Abbasid Khalifa is still there. Remember, he's kind of like the royal family. You kind of respect them. Doesn't really have really power, but people respect him. And he sends an envoy to Salahuddin saying, we acknowledge that you are the king and the ruler of Syria and Egypt, except for Aleppo. Now, he even gave him Aleppo. But Salahuddin, out of respect, said, you know what? I will not take Aleppo because Ismail is there. I love Nur-ad-Din so much. I respect him. His son is there. I'll agree to not take Aleppo. He could have done it. But out of his goodwill, he said, you know what? Even the Khalifa, Abbas Khalifa, has given it to him. He's saying that, you know what? I'll let him still do it. So I'll take everything else except that. On paper now, he is the authority in Egypt and greater Syria. Okay, so coins are now mentioned in his name, right? His name is mentioned. His name is mentioned in the khutbahs, right? You might not think that's a thing, but wait till you go and visit Saudi or the Emirates or Dubai or Abu Dhabi. When you go to the khutbah, they make dua for their Amir of that area, right? So that's something that's been going on for a while. Even the khutbahs in Saudi, in the Haram, in the Kaaba, they'll make for MBS, to honor him and to pray for him and his family. They don't ever mention his name. They just said the Wali al-Amr, like the one who has authority of this land. It's a good way of not saying his name because I might spark, other things, if you will. Okay, so that's going there. So the Zionids obviously become quite angry of this because they're seeing that Salahuddin now is getting power and so forth. Okay, Saifuddin in Mosul, right, the nephew of Nur-ad-Din, doesn't like this, that the Khalifa gave him all this power. So what he decides is stop the effort of Salahuddin, even though there's a truce with him and Salahuddin and the people in Aleppo, right? That's one thing they agreed on, that Aleppo, we have a truce. I'm not going to fight you anymore. Saifuddin says, yeah, guys, break that. If you're going to let Salahuddin have this type of power, he's going to come to Mosul and take me out. He's going to take over all these lands. So he sends a letter to the people in Aleppo, the emirs, Ismail, the son of Nur-ad-Din, that break your truce with Salahuddin. Okay. It looks kind of nasty, right? Qatar doesn't get along with Saudi. Saudi doesn't get along with Qatar. The UAE doesn't get along with Qatar. Qatar doesn't get along with them, right? This one supports Israel. This one's against Israel, right? All these different type of things kind of goes on. So Muslims are playing different kind of cards. It's kind of interesting, right? It's modern day stuff. He sent a letter to Aleppo to break their truce, sent letters to the Crusaders, like the Americans, right? The Russians, right? Hey guys, get your army over here. We'll give you a base. You could use our airspace, no problem, right? So to Raymond III and to Jerusalem, right? Like the worst of the worst people, slaughtered 60,000 Muslims in Quds, right? Hey, come out and help us, like, come to support him. He sends, the funniest thing ever, he sends a messenger to Salahuddin to fake him out and say, you know what, that I want to have peace with you, right? Even though he's gathering an army to attack him. This messenger, poor guy, he has 2 letters, one for Salahuddin and one for the emirs in Ayyub, in Aleppo, okay? He forgot what pocket he put the letters in. Okay, like, wow, was it the right pocket? Was it the left pocket? I'm forgetting. I'm in front of Salahuddin right now. I'm going to go with this pocket, right? He should have made it color-coded. That would have been better, right? Gives them the wrong letter. And that letter said that was the one that was supposed to be sent to the leaders of Aleppo, saying that we're going to gather an army against Salahuddin. We need to crush him. Salahuddin reads this and says, I don't know if you know. You ever send an email to the wrong person by mistake? Can't get that email back. It just goes. You just have to, right? Or text people wrongly, right? Same thing. So Salahuddin finds out what Salahuddin's doing, okay, right? That they're coming with a combined army from Aleppo and Mosul of 20,000 soldiers and heading towards to Damascus, where Salahuddin is sitting. This is going to be a big problem, right? This is really serious now, okay? This guy, Mushaddin, Nuruddin back in the day, when Nuruddin there, captured 2 of the big leaders of the Crusaders. One is Reynald Ashatian, the Shaitan of Shaitans, okay? Captured him. It was amazing that he captured him, okay? For 16 years, he's been in prison on the Muslim lands. Jocelyn, remember it's a guy's name. He was the Count of Edessa when Edessa was took over by Imaduddin. We're going a little further up now, okay? And he was in prison. Gumishtigin says, you know what? I really need the Crusaders to help me. I need them to squash Salahuddin. We don't like Salahuddin. You guys don't like Salahuddin. To make goodwill for you guys, I'm going to release these guys out of jail, out of prison. Okay. And look, I'm being good guys with you guys. Here they're back. Here's your leaders back. Crusaders take them. They don't help at all. And they're like, okay, thank you. This guy, this guy goes on a raid. We're going to talk about him next week. I kind of mentioned him last week. Killing Muslims left and right on Hajj routes. He would purposely attack the Hujjaj that were going for Hajj and Umrah and just kill them and slaughter them. Left and right, didn't care, women, children, anyone. That was things. Like I said, he was a pharaoh of the time. Really wasn't the leaders in Jerusalem. They were not as bad, right? So we're going to talk about him in a bit.
I think they ousted him later, right? Because he was too much even for the...
And the Crusaders couldn't handle him. Baldwin IV, the one that had leprosy, said, like, you know what, we'll have a truce with you, Salahuddin. But then this guy kept on killing him. And Salahuddin's like, what are you doing? Like, control your guy. He's like, I can't control him. So Salahuddin's like, okay, I have to go take him out myself. We'll see what happens to him later on. If you watched Kingdom of Heaven, you kind of know what happens to him. But anyway. Salahuddin says, okay, I need backup. So he tells back to his family, his land in Egypt, bring an army. I got 20,000 soldiers that are heading to Damascus. Okay. So they have this battle called Til al-Sultan. Til in Arabic means hill. Okay. So Til of Sultan, this was a battle where the 2 sides meet here. So the Zankids were able to overrun Salahuddin at the beginning of the battle, take over a bit. Salahuddin, master of military operations and strategy, was able to make a counterattack and come back and break through the lines of the enemy, or the armies of Aleppo and Mosul, right? Capture some of their leaders. But good old Salahuddin, what he does, he said, you guys could go. Captured you, but I'm showing you that you're on the wrong side. He's trying to win over their hearts. Sometimes that works, maybe 5% of the time. 95% of the time really doesn't work. But he's banking on that 5%, right? That hopefully they see that Salahuddin is a good guy, he's a good Muslim, he wants good things for the Ummah, but he releases them back, and they don't really take his favor nonetheless. Okay. Salahuddin Al-Ayyubi II goes back to Mosul. He realizes Salahuddin's army is really strong. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to take him out. Okay. Salahuddin heads towards Aleppo for the second time, right? And decides not to besiege it. Just kind of sit around that area there and take over lands around it. So what do? If you can't take over the land and besiege it, just start conquering little areas around it to put pressure on the people inside that hopefully they'll see like, hey, we should probably give up because he's taking all the lands around. He got Westminster, he's got, Anaheim, he's got, Bolsa, so all, Garden Grove might as well just give up. Just say we don't. It's a great strategy not to kill people. Look how he's thinking. I don't want to fight you guys. I don't want to lay siege and bomb your walls. I'm just going to take the lands around you, and then hopefully you guys could realize what you need to do. Okay. So he took his troops took over the areas around the city. Negotiations once take a place again, where they said we will unite against the Crusaders. We won't fight each other, even though if you think about the people of Aleppo already broke their truce. Remember the truce that they said that they would not fight each other again, but they did. So if you're Salahuddin, you have all the green light to take over Aleppo because they broke their truce on their side. They're the ones that came to Damascus. Remember that? So, but he's not going to play that card. He's going to say, okay, guys, no more breaking the treaty again. I don't know about you. It's like you slap their hands once. They say, I know you guys try to kill me, but just don't do it again. Right? This is, subhanAllah. Look at that type of, heart and what he's kind of dealing with people. It gives the Muslims in a whole different way. Okay. Gives back the citadel of Azaz. There was a citadel there, a big fortress that he took. And he says, I'll give it back to you guys. Right. So he's trying to do as much as he can. Tables turn a lot now because Salahuddin al-Ghazi, the one in Mosul, he dies. Right. Surprisingly, at the age of 30. Some said, once again, people try to poison drinks. Back in those days, that's the thing. Anyone gives you a cup of water, just like, I don't know, I'd rather get my water from the ground, making sure someone doesn't try to kill me. But that was one of the stories there, that someone tried to poison him and kill him. 30 years old, not very old, right? Once again, he only has a son that's 11 years old. Okay. He got married around 18 or 19, not too, or no, but still, not old enough to take over. And he reigned for about 10 years in Mosul. His brother, Izz-ad-Din Mosul, I know there's a lot of deans here. It's hard to pick up these names, but, this is you can just guess sometimes. So Izz-ad-Din, the honor of the Deen, Mas'ud, was appointed as the next leader of Mosul. Before he was dying, because he was poisoned, he was going down. He said, my son's 11 years old. It didn't work too good with Nur-ad-Din. 11-year-olds don't really run countries very well. I'm going to give the power to my brother, Izz-ad-Din. He'll be the next leader of Mosul. Okay, so Salahuddin is going to have some issues with him. Okay, and then Ismail, right? Remember the 11-year-old? He's 18 now. He dies. Guess what? Don't drink the water, and he did. Okay, once again, poisoned by one of the emirs, right? At 18 years old, and he dies. So Salahuddin is saying, subhanAllah, a lot of qadrs happening here. Salahuddin was against me, now he's gone. Ismail wouldn't listen to me, the little 18, 16-year-old, and now he's gone. But the emirs are the ones that are really running Aleppo, right? The elders, if you will. So Salahuddin says, I'm going to return back to Egypt right now because he's been gone for a while. He has to make sure no one takes over Egypt, right? That's another issue.
Got poisoned, right?
He did. He did. From well, no, let me retract that. After the battle of Khaybar, there was a Jewish lady that cooked a meal for the Prophet ﷺ and said, this is the meat. And so one of the Sahaba ate before him and ended up dying. And that's how he knew that it was poison and he didn't take part in it. So subhanAllah. So he was like close, if you will, to be getting poisoned from the Jewish lady in the city of Khaybar after they overtook the city. So not actually physically poisoned. Yeah. That was a real thing back in those days. You see those in movies, put something in someone's water and then they go to sleep, right? Anyhow. All right. Izz-ad-Din Mas'ud, here he goes. He has a brother named Imad-ad-Din Zanki II. That's super confusing, but hopefully you guys, when I say the word second, you guys know that's not the original Imad-ad-Din. He can't come back to life, okay? So he says, his brother says, can we switch? I'm in a Mosul, you're in Aleppo, or you're in a city called Sinjar, sorry, which is between Aleppo and Mosul. Let me go back to my map here. Okay, Sinjar is like, here's Mosul, there is Sinjar here, and then there's Aleppo here. So it's in between the two. Okay. So his brother says, hey, where am I at now? I always forget. Was it more? Was this one?
No.
This one?
No.
Oh my gosh.
No.
This one? No?
No.
Man, we got a lot to go over. SubhanAllah. Okay, good. Yeah. So he said, let's switch. I'll take over Aleppo and you take over Sinjar, right? How do you switch over to cities like that? I don't know. This kind of works, you know. We'll take the Texas governor. You could take the California governor. I don't know if that's how things worked back in the day, but they're brothers. So Izzuddin didn't want to do it, but he says, you know, let's go ahead. Okay. He does that. Salahuddin didn't like that because it felt like something fishy was going on. Remember, Salahuddin took the areas around Aleppo. Remember that? And so he kind of owned areas in Aleppo. So things were going kind of fishy with those type of areas. And he said, you know what? That kind of breaks the truce that I have with you guys. You know, you guys are switching governors and you started taking over some of my areas that I have. That wasn't part of the deal, right? So Salahuddin, guess what? He has to head back over to Syria to find out what's kind of going on, right? So he heads back to Mosul and Aleppo, these both areas here. I don't know how he just keeps on leaving. I don't know how you like, how your family, what your children doing, you know, subhanAllah, you know, I guess if you're a Salahuddin, you don't really worry about that. Hopefully Allah will help them, bring them up, inshallah ta'ala, but it's just amazing how to, and that's not like you just drive a car or take a plane. This is like walking or being on a camel or a horse, you know, it's just, yeah, I don't know how they did that. He deemed the way of Izzuddin was ruining the affairs of the one against the treaty. Izzuddin urged the Crusaders to attack the Muslim borders. So he knew Salahuddin was coming. So Izzuddin, he's in Sinjar now, right? He says, you know, Crusaders start attacking, go ahead, so Salahuddin could not focus on me and focus on you. Like, subhanAllah, how do you even like talk like that, right? So Salahuddin knows exactly what he's doing. He heads in over to the areas of Iraq, Mesopotamia, right? Focus on moving east, taking some of the areas, putting the pressure on Mosul and Sinjar on these areas that was kind of looking kind of shaky to him, and also that looked like might be having an uprising against him. The Zankin lands were quickly turned to Ayyubi rule. So anytime Salahuddin will move forward, he would just conquer these small cities. A lot of times was no war. They will say, oh, you're Salahuddin? Okay, we're under your rule now. We don't mind, right? So he started taking over these small cities, if you will. 1182, Salahuddin arrives at Mosul, right? This is one of the fortresses. Once again, these are people, okay? And this is the fortress, okay? Once again, if you're going to try to make it up this way, you know, you're going to have things raining down on you. It's always good to be in a city that has a lot of hills. You know, lo and behold, you had a fortress in the Nebraska or something like that. You had like no hills at all, right? You have to make your own hills, right? So if you had a hilly area, mashallah, right? It kind of helped you out so you could build a fortress on top of that hill and then defend it from there. Imagine Salahuddin trying to fight against these things here, right? These are people here, once again. He's trying to break into Mosul, which is a major city. Okay, Mosul is historically, it's a major city. Historically, the land of a lot of ilm, a lot of scholars in that land also. So he's trying to go through the city. He tries to breach the city, but he just cannot. The army is too strong, more well-equipped than him, right? He couldn't breach it. So once again, back to negotiations. So he says, you know, we'll negotiate again. You don't want to kill anyone. Just try to negotiate. And so they decide to Salahuddin wanted to go to Aleppo, and Izzuddin wanted to take back his territories. Salahuddin said, okay, here's the negotiations. All the lands I took while I was coming over to Mosul, I'll give it back to you. But you have to give me back Aleppo. They're like, nah, we're not going to do that. Right? We know what happens. If you give you Aleppo, bad things are going to happen to us later on. So we're not going to do that. So guess what? What does Salahuddin do? He says, informs the Khalifa in Baghdad. He always does this. He always sends a letter to them. Hey, Khalifa, this is what I'm doing. I want to let you know that I'm not trying to do anything behind your back. I want to get your approval, right? That I'm going to go to Sinjar now, And since I can't get into Mosul, I'm going to go to Sinjar. It's kind of smart. So then if they find out what's going on in Sinjar, the people in Mosul is going to either have to come over, or they're going to know that Salahuddin is trying to take land around Mosul and put pressure once again on the city. That's his strategy. He goes to Sinjar, right? That's where Izzuddin is at. And 15 days, the city falls down. Like this, they can't defend against him. He takes over. That's a major city, if you will. Okay. The emirs in the region try to join together to oust Salahuddin. They try to bring an army. By the time they came there, they're all dispersed because they didn't want to fight him. Salahuddin says, let's try it again. Let's go to a second time, going back to Aleppo. Let's see if we could finally take it. Let's see who wants it back, subhanAllah. Right? This is life. He has to get the city. Okay? So he moves to the outskirts of the city. He pretends he starts, this is the third time, sorry. He starts building lodges around the outside of the city, as if I'm going to start living here, guys. I don't want to fight you, right? I'm not going to bomb you guys. I took all the lands around you. You guys still don't understand. I'm going to start building cities for my houses for my army to sit here. We're not living in tents. We're going to settle right here. Okay, basically trying to tell them I'm not going anywhere, right? Imad ad-Din Zanki II, remember the brother that switched, right? He made negotiations that had over the city to Salahuddin. Salahuddin, you could take over. That's it. We can't take you anymore. Too much pressure, if you will. Salahuddin takes control of Aleppo. Imad ad-Din Zanki says it takes control of Sinjar. You can have Sinjar back, right? And other cities. Okay. Imad ad-Din's army will be at the disposal of Salahuddin when needed. So now Salahuddin has what? Aleppo, Damascus, Egypt. That whole area now is all his. This area here, okay? This area here is still Mosul, and other ones are still up for grabs right now, right? The Zankid family is still have this left over, okay?
What about east towards Turkey?
Well, Turkey's over here. That's west.
Oh, sorry, west.
Yeah, so the Seljuks are still ruling this area.
Okay.
The Seljuks are still there, and then obviously the Byzantines are in
He was not in.
No, he didn't. He wants to connect this. He didn't really care about going over this. He's trying to make sure that his main goal is Jerusalem, but he has to make sure whatever behind his back, and this way he doesn't have to worry.
I think Sunnis as well. Right?
Yeah, they're all they're Sunnis. Yeah. So here was like a little too far away. I mean, he's really trying to conquer here. But as he's trying to conquer here, he's going to make sure these guys come back and attack him on the back. So clean up your backyard this way and this way. No one really lives here. It's much a desert. And this would be too far for the Byzantines to come down, or the Seljuks, if you will.
They're very neutral kind of with each other.
Yes, right. And the Seljuks are more looking at to try to take over Istanbul from the Byzantine. That's what their main goal. So they're not really thinking about Salahuddin. Take Jerusalem, that's fine. You know what I mean? So Salahuddin has it set up pretty nice. And Allah made it that way from these people dying, from these leaders, and Allah's keeping him alive. So something's going on there. Right? So this happens here. Good. The Crusaders were extremely concerned that their cities would be, for their cities after this move, that Salahuddin now has so much powers. Now that all that area here, remember the Crusaders have this this strip here. Yeah, right? And so it's like Tripoli, Antioch is more over here though. And then Jerusalem is down here, okay? And so that's all that's kind of left, that slither of land that they have. It's really getting smaller and smaller. You can see their ends coming soon, okay? The Count of Antioch asked for a truce with Salahuddin, which he grants. So Salahuddin really doesn't work with the Crusaders like that. But he said, you know what? Hey, if I don't have to worry about you guys in the west and I could focus on Mosul in the east, let's do it. Okay. That works out good for them because they're scared that Salahuddin's going to come and take their land. So he says, all right, I'll make a truce with you guys. You guys don't come. Second siege now in Mosul. Remember, he couldn't get it the first time. Remember the fort, how big it was, right? I don't know why the font's a little small here. But in 1184, Izzuddin Masul imprisons his deputy called Qaymas in the city, which caused a lot of uprising in the city around him. Okay. And so some of those governors in the cities around it didn't like that move. And so they reached out to Salahuddin and says, can you come here? And they started being loyal to Salahuddin, which works perfect. So Izzuddin made a little mistake there. It gives a door for Salahuddin to come. This sparks Salahuddin ahead to Mosul, right? Salahuddin requests all the governors to what? To choose what they wanted to do. They want to follow Izz-ad-Din or they want to follow him. So they say that, you guys choose who you want. Part of the negotiations, if you will. Izz-ad-Din finally says, you know what, I'm going to release the ones I imprisoned. Salahuddin, you go away. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to imprison him. Okay, hopefully you could leave me alone. He wrote to the Khalifa about his intentions, how the khutbah wasn't done in his name in Mosul. They're not following you. Salahuddin is trying to get the favor of the Khalifa of the Abbasids to let him give him the green light to go into Mosul. Okay. They finally try to work out a agreement. Izz-ad-Din, look, like he's really trying to work with Salahuddin. So he gets Nur ad-Din's daughter, who's alive at that time, lives in Mosul, brings her with. You don't really bring women to these negotiating tables. You can say right or wrong or whatever. We could talk about that later on. But usually the women don't come to those tables. He brings a lot of other women to there to kind of, aim at the target of the heart of Salahuddin. Look, you have Nur ad-Din's daughter here. You don't want to take over the city. Look at these women here. What does Salahuddin do? He buys into it. Like, okay, I don't want to. I won't attack the city. I won't take it over, right? So he lifts the siege, right? And also it was really hot, right? And the army was strong. He said, okay. So the second siege doesn't work for Salahuddin. There's always a third one, right? It's always, there's always three, guys. Always try that anytime, inshallah. Right? It's going to work out. Okay. So after capturing cities in Iraq, so he goes off. Salahuddin. He's not going to sit there. He's going to go take over other cities, right? Unite the Muslims as much as possible, right? Izz-ad-Din says, okay, this is it. You, subhanAllah, your himma, your determination is too strong. I'm going to make a peace deal with you. Salahuddin fell ill and he couldn't come to the negotiating table. Oh my gosh, look at that. Subhanallah, he's been waiting for this moment. But he finally gets ill. You never thought Salahuddin ever gets a cold or a cough. But subhanAllah, he does get a cold and a cough every now and then. So he can't go. He has someone go on his behalf, but they have some good negotiations here where Mosul will be self-governed. So Izz-ad-Din, you can stay there, but it's part of the Ayyubid state. So you have like the self-governing area there, but you're part of the overall Ayyubid land of Salahuddin. Your Sultan is Salahuddin. The khutbahs are going to be put in the name of Salahuddin. The coins are being used in Mosul are going to be on the name of Salahuddin. Okay, but Izz-ad-Din, you stay there. Okay, so you see how Salahuddin, subhanAllah, just try not to kill people, especially Muslims, right? And so they agree to that, right? Salahuddin now is able to unite the Muslims out of one front. He finally gets Mosul. He finally gets Aleppo, right? That whole area, as we mentioned here. This is a little bit more colorful for it. He has all this area now under his thing. Now he finally gets that. Now you know where the green light's going to be at now. Where is he going to focus on? The Crusaders now. You have to clean up your backyard. If you're going to free Gaza, right? You can't have the Egyptians after you and the Jordanians that are blocking missiles that are fighting against someone else. That has to change, right? No, we're not going to overthrow them and kill all of them. You see, Salahuddin, you have to kind of work, or hopefully, it sounds bad, some of these leaders die. And so maybe next one comes up. The Saudis have to, we have to get them on the same page, right? And when we can't be trying to free Gaza and then the Saudis are, hey, you can use our airspace. Egypt, you can use our airspace. Come through the Suez Canal with your battleships. Come right through there. Yeah, go ahead if you want to bomb there. You want to make your Riviera here in the Gaza Strip, right? That something has to change, right? So there's a lot of cleaning up the backyard. I don't know that process, and I want to be the last one to talk about it, but you can see what Salahuddin did here. The history repeats itself. He cleans up all these areas. The Shia also is kind of not as powerful. The Assassins are a little bit there, but they're much more getting pushed out from different areas. Now he could finally focus on this area there. I never understood how you could conquer a city and then leave and make sure that it doesn't get taken over the next day by somebody. You have to leave someone you really trust to take over as your governor. And that, hey, I'm leaving Egypt, guys. I'm going to be like a month, away journey. Hopefully nobody takes over Egypt. Alhamdulillah, no one does that. I don't know how that works, but it works well for him. So this whole area is now under Salahuddin's rule. Before he leaves, like I said, he's a good guy, mashallah. He gives thousands of dinar and gifts to Izz-ad-Din, the leaders in Mosul, Like, I know we don't have beef. We have good hearts. I love you. You know, let's work on what we need to be working on. Let's focus over here, right? We'll also be focused on the crusaders that took our land and wake up from the sleep that we've been in there about your land and my land and this. And that's sometimes you have to wake up people that way, you know? And so that was the main thing. He got them all to favor him. And now, inshallah ta'ala, next week, we'll go on to the main battle called the Battle of Hattin, where it was the main thing where he fought against the crusaders, and that will lead to the liberation of Jerusalem. Inshallah, I hope to cover that next Sunday, inshallah ta'ala. Questions or comments on this? A lot of information, a lot of names, a lot of deans. Hopefully caught some of it, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah. So, yeah, subhanAllah. Good.
Well, actually, I just wanted to say, you mentioned that in the Gulf countries it meant dua for the rulers. I mean, that's obviously from the Sunnah, is to make dua for the rulers and like, you know, that they do the right thing.
So you have to be careful with the word sunnah though, right? So when you say the word sunnah, I mean that this is something the Prophet ﷺ did. So he did not make names in rulers and that, right?
Yeah, but just in general, I was saying like as a general, like,
General and sunnah is two different words.
No, but like you're supposed to make dua for the rulers. That's in Islam. Yeah, you're supposed to make dua.
I don't think there's nothing fiqh-wise. The Prophet said must make dua for rulers in the
because
khutbah.
I mean, I think maybe it was the Salaf, the Salihin, maybe the Sahaba kind of established this because what I know is that number one, you're also supposed to follow the Sunnah of the Sahaba as well as the Prophet that's mentioned. So there's that. Number two, it's also because that differentiates the Khawarij and the Sunnah, and the Sunnah we make dua for the rulers.
Well, that's where that kind of sprung from. This whole
I think that's where it came from.
Shia and Sunni divide. Who are what masjid, what name are you saying that?
Yeah.
Right? Are you praising Dr. Siddiqui? You're praising the other imam down the street from another deviant sect masjid, right? So, you know what I mean? That kind of tells people, oh, okay, these guys are with this group. People didn't have a flag, they didn't have a baseball hat. You could tell them what team they're on. But when they made the khutbah in this Khalifa's name or this leader's name, you kind of know, oh, okay, I know where these guys are from. So it was more for identification purposes, especially when the Shia came in. It was more to make sure that, yeah, we're Sunnis, look, we're doing this. Oh, you guys making over there? So it's more of identification, right? I think that's how that started, if you will. Of course, during the time of the Prophet, he didn't have to, he's the one giving the khutbah, obviously, right? But so that was not something that was done. But even in Mecca, when the khutbahs were done, it's not, and he was in Medina, it wasn't said that of course, they're playing slams on the Prophet, obviously, in Islam, but there's no thing that, you know, as he's our leader or something like that, and that's understood because that's our prophet. So,
yeah.
Good. Any other questions or comments? I think Dr. Siddiqui does have his class afterwards. We'll make dua. We ask Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. Anta salam wa minka salam. Fadrabta ya dhu jalal ikram. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala nabiyyina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Ghafur. We ask you to forgive us for our wrongdoings. Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. We ask you to free our Muslim lands from the oppressor, Ya Kareem, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, join the Muslim ummah's hearts together. Let us not have ill feelings between each other. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, protect our brothers and sisters wherever they're at from the enemies. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, unite us and forgive us. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wassalamu al-mursaleen. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah bless all of you. We'll see you next Sunday. Assalamu alaikum.